Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good night, whatever time zone you're in, welcome. We welcome our BSR travelers, friends, and family. We welcome Cuba lovers and anyone who wants to travel to Cuba for the first time. This information session number 1 is for our group trip, Havana Jazz Festival, an Afro-Cuban culture tour hosted by Black Soul Rhythms Travel. My name is Marjorie Fort-Dees, and I'm the owner and founder of BSR Travel, and I'm happy to bring this tour to you in 2023. So for the next 20 minutes in this informational session, what I'd like to do is review the tour to discuss what is included in the group trip to Havana, explain why now is a good time to visit Cuba, explain why Cuba is so important to the African diaspora, and take a brief moment to mention the passport and visa process, and finally, address common concerns about Americans traveling to Cuba. So let's take a look at the presentation. And this slide in front of you here is a series of pictures that I took in Havana, Cuba in 2017 when I last visited. I had a fabulous time. I spent most of my time in the city of Havana, but I also was able to take a trip to Santiago de Cuba, which is located in the southeastern portion of the country. Havana is actually in the northwestern side of the country. But nonetheless, both locations were fantastic. So I'm sure many of you have been waiting long years. We've been waiting at least 2 years now, waiting for the borders to reopen to various countries for us to get back out there and start traveling again, and the day has finally come. Borders are open with Cuba, and we're excited to bring this trip to you as a small group trip with a flexible itinerary. You will have unique opportunities to experience Cuba like few others do. You'll have a professional English-speaking tour guide who is obviously native to Cuba, and he has the inside scoop on all things Havana Jazz Festival. So the Jazz Festival runs throughout the week while we're going to be there, and he's going to be able to maneuver us in and out of various venues and clubs and restaurants. As you might know, the Jazz Festival in Cuba, the schedule changes quite often. So he'll be able to make sure we're on top of any changes that may occur while we're there. So you're going to have a unique opportunity, as I mentioned. We're going to stay in a B&B, bed and breakfast. So you have opportunities to meet local chefs and musicians and Afro-Cuban business owners. And I'll speak about why this is important when it comes to the category in which we are traveling to Cuba. But what the goal is for you is to return home with unforgettable memories and stories to tell about your visit to the country that some folks say is stuck in time. Now, why is now a good time to visit Cuba? Well, there are few international travelers, but that number is expected to increase. So it's a good time now, while Cuba is not terribly congested with tourists, which it has been known to be in the past years. Now is a good time to travel. Also, right now, COVID travel restrictions do not exist. There are no restrictions at this point. It's always a good idea, though. Highly recommended that you travel with your vaccine card whenever you're leaving the country. So it's a good idea to make sure you have that with you on hand. And please know, there's no requirement for COVID testing. So you don't have to show proof of negative COVID tests to get into the country, to leave the country, to get back into the United States. That's not needed anymore. And once again, Cuba is a one-of-a-kind destination. Cuba is famous for its beautiful, pristine beaches, and that is why beach tourism is the most popular form of tourism for the island. Some of the most beautiful beaches in the Caribbean are in Cuba, and many of them remain isolated. Coastlines have beautiful white sand. The seas are electrifying blue waters. And we're going to have an opportunity to visit the beach if folks choose to do so. It's not an official activity in the itinerary. When you take a look, you'll see it's not there. But if there's interest to go, we can make sure we make an effort to get there to the beach. It's hard to go to a Caribbean island and not go to the beach, so we'll make sure we go. But just so that you know, weather in January is typically an average high of 78 and an average low of 65. So it won't be extremely hot. You may not even want to get into the water to swim, but at the very least, we can at least get to the beach to see it. We'll have an opportunity to meet a local businessman who does go fishing, and he brings the fish back. He cooks it on the beach. We'll have a couple of beers and enjoy ourselves casually on the beach, if folks decide they want to do that. Once again, yes, this itinerary is flexible. We'll have time to shop and visit restaurants that are not on the itinerary, just as the beach is not on the itinerary as well. Another reason why now is a good time to visit is because we are, once again, using a flexible, small group itinerary. We're not traveling in large numbers. We want to be able to move around Havana in small numbers. This will allow us to get in and out of venues and locations easily. Although there are no specific things we cannot do, there is a list of activities that we will follow, just because that is part of the rule for our traveling to Cuba. So let me just take a minute and explain the categories, the travel categories, the visa categories for traveling to Cuba. Now, when I visited in 2017, I visited under what was called the people-to-people category, which was meant to foster educational dialogue between visitors and Cubans. It was primarily used by tour companies and cruise lines. That's the reason that they gave when they brought passengers and guests to the island of Cuba. But as of June 5th, 2019, this category was no longer acceptable for Americans to use. We could no longer visit Cuba using the people-to-people category. Instead, what we're going to use, which is currently available for us to use, is the support for the Cuban people category. This was also available in 2017, but it wasn't as used as often. So we're going to travel using the support for the Cuban people category, which is meant to enable travelers to support the Cuban people directly. Something to keep in note, what we must avoid when we're traveling under this category is we have to avoid all military-owned businesses in the island. You cannot spend money or interact with any of them. And that's another reason why it's important to go with a group like Black Soul Rhythms Travel. We're going to be guided by a tour operator who is versed in the rules and where we can go, where we cannot go. They will know exactly where we can and cannot go. And that's a very important reason why now is a good time to travel with us, with Black Soul Rhythms Travel. So some of the activities that do allow for support for the Cuban people are meeting with local artists, meeting musicians, meeting farmers, and in fact, anybody who owns a business in Cuba, privately owned, not government owned, not military owned, but privately owned business. Those activities and locations are available to us. We'll be able to shop in independent markets. We'll be able to explore independently run museums. We will be taking classes. We're going to take a music class and we're going to take a mixology class. We'll talk to musicians at live music venues. We'll have a lot of opportunities to do that all throughout the week, every single night of the week if you choose. We're going to attend independent museums, art shows. We'll see different Cuban artists. We're going to discuss Cuban society. Obviously, we'll have lots of discussions. They do like to speak with us Americans just to get a pulse for what's going on in America, what's happening in our sports world, what's happening in our music world. You might be surprised to think that they're not in tune with what's going on, but they are very, very much in tune with what's going on around the world. So also, what we're going to do is obviously spend quite a bit of time at the Havana Jazz Festival. As I mentioned, each night during the week, there will be a different event, venue that we can visit to listen to local Cuban musicians. And so to answer the question why Cuba is so important to the African diaspora, well, music is a major, major factor of why it's important to the African diaspora. Just a quick fact, culture of Cuba is complex. You probably don't need me to tell you that. And I'm referring to the customs, the traditions, the music, the religious beliefs, and the way of life in Cuba. These are mostly based on European and Amerindian influences, but additionally, African influences is a primary influence in Cuban culture. Cuban music has been immensely popular globally, and as you know, as you can see on the screen here, You have musicians like Celia Cruz. She's globally known. She has passed away now, but she is a native Cuban, has toured the world with her music. Same thing for Arturo Sandoval. He's also a very famous Cuban musician. Paquito de Rivera, another famous musician. These are the types of musicians that we're going to see and hear while we're visiting Cuba. So, just to get back to the music of Cuba, it was the original basis of salsa. I'm referring to Cuban music now. And it contributed not only to the development of jazz, as we know it, but also to Argentinian tango. It contributed to high life music out of Ghana in Africa. Also, Cuban music has contributed to Afrobeat music out of West Africa and the Spanish Nuevo Flamenco, among other music genres. So this is a major reason why we're going to spend time in Cuba, so that we can experience this music for ourselves. We can hear it with our own ears and experience it for ourselves. Now, let's take a look at some of the quick facts about this trip, just to spend a moment here. The trip, as we've already know, is January 21st through January 28th. That's Saturday to Saturday. That's 8 days and 7 nights. The tour package is based on double occupancy. The cost is $4,350 per person. And something to note, the deposit is due immediately to hold your spot. So if there's someone who does want to travel solo, we can make those arrangements. Just please contact us and we will make sure we get a quote to you for that amount for the solo trip. But for the most part, this trip is based on double occupancy. That's 2 people to a room, and that's per person cost there. Included in the trip is nonstop round-trip airfare, JFK to Havana on JetBlue Airlines. Once again, that's leaving out of New York City on Saturday morning. Flight leaves right now is scheduled to leave at 9 a.m., about 9 a.m. So if you're traveling from a different destination in the United States, you need to meet us in New York. So we suggest that you meet or arrive the day before on Friday, January 20th. Arrive on Friday so that you're settled in and you're ready to go. You don't miss that flight on Saturday. That is the one and only non-stop direct flight to Havana. It's on Saturdays. So if you miss that flight, you'll have to make other arrangements to meet us in Havana. There's flights going out of Miami on American Airlines that goes to Havana. But please make sure that you join us as we travel nonstop from New York City. So transportation, hotel, airport transfers in Havana, they're included. Overnight accommodations at the B&B is included. And once again, these are the room with double beds, 2 beds. Breakfast daily is included. Lunch and dinner, as noted in the itinerary, is included. Much of the itinerary includes lunch or dinner each day. Some days you get both, but at least you'll have at least one lunch or at least one dinner that's already included, already paid for during your stay. Tours in Havana are included. We are going to take a day trip to Vinales. That's a town in Cuba that we're going to visit. We're also going to take a ferry ride over to Reglatown, which is an island off the coast of Havana, and that is where many African slaves settled while they were in Cuba. They settled on that island, Regla. So we'll take a trip over there. It's a few-hour trip during our stay. That's another of the tours that's included. As I mentioned, cooking classes, mixology classes. We're going to take a music class as well, a drumming class. That's all included in this trip package. We're going to have our final night at the Buena Vista Social Club for entertainment. It's a dinner supper club, so we'll have dinner. We'll listen to some live performances, music. It's interactive, so we'll be able to sing along and get up on stage at some point. But it's a really great time for a group, so we'll make sure we do that on our final night on Friday night, January 27th. And as I mentioned, as part of this group, you'll also get credentials to attend the Jazz Festival events during the week. So it's a credentialed pass, so to speak, and it's going to get you access to the various music events across Havana. So there's music events. There's also lectures and classes as well during the day too, that you'll be able to get access to. Now, what's not included are gratuities and tips. The Cuban visa is not included, the cost of that, but we will make sure you have the proper paperwork to secure that visa. It's actually a very simple process, but we'll make sure you have the proper paperwork. Personal expenses such as laundry, any souvenirs that you might want to buy, all of that is not included. And travel insurance is also not included. And just a moment to speak about travel insurance. Travel insurance is highly recommended that you get travel insurance because once again, the deposit for this trip plus any payments after deposit are non-refundable. The only way they're refundable is if you have travel insurance that is cancel for any reason policy. Once again, it should be a cancel for any reason policy. And we'll make sure you have the correct policy. Some people are not aware, but you can get, and most people do get, travel insurance, but that travel insurance kicks in on the first day of your trip. This cancel for any reason policy starts at the moment that you've made your payment, the moment that it is purchased. And it goes into effect at that moment. So if you purchase it in advance, you will get coverage before you leave the trip. So if you have to cancel because you get sick or a family member injures themselves and you have to stay, you can't go after all, you have to stay behind to take care of them, you will still get coverage under this policy. And once again, the $300 deposit and any payments made afterwards are non-refundable unless you have this type of insurance policy. So we'll make sure you get that policy in place if you don't already have it. Okay, so for more information about the daily itinerary, we give you a detailed itinerary online at blacksoulrhythms.com/Havana-Jazz-Festival. Go to that website. You'll see the full itinerary for all 8 days, 7 nights. Detailed itinerary includes where we're going, what we're going to see. Timing is given as well. And this is important when it comes to being able to show in the future, if you're ever asked, what did you do in Cuba? You'll be able to show this detailed itinerary as your explanation of what you did. So I hope we've answered most of your questions, but we want to just go through the next steps. Next steps at this point to come with us to Cuba on this group tour is to register by completing the client profile form, which is online. Once again, you'll find this client profile form online at that website I just mentioned, blacksoulrhythms.com/Havana-Jazz-Festival. If you go to that website, you'll find the client profile form. It's a register button that you'll see on the screen. Just click that register button, the client profile form opens, and you'll just be asked some simple contact questions, your name, your mailing address, your email address, your cell phone number. We also need to know what is your passport's expiration date and your birth date. So we ask that you upload a copy of your passport to our secure database. We will obviously keep that copy on file. It's good to have because you never know, you might lose your passport. We'll be able to get you a copy of that passport at the very least, so that you can continue to travel. So yes, this client profile form needs to be completed and submitted. Once you see the form, you read down the form, you'll have to read through the terms and conditions. At the very bottom, you have to give your electronic signature to agree to those terms and conditions. These are terms and conditions for traveling with Black Soul Rhythms Travel. You have to agree to those. And once that is submitted, signed off and submitted, we will review each client profile form. We want to make sure everything is in order. We have all the contact information and information that we need. And then only at that point will we approve your client profile form. Once it's approved, we'll send out to you an invoice for full payment. What you can do is make your deposit payment, or you can pay it in full. It's up to you. There is no payment plan, so to speak. You pay the deposit, but the final payment must be made and submitted by November the 15th. Payment is only accepted by credit card. We don't accept checks or cash. So make sure you plan accordingly. You make your payment deposit now. you can split it up into 2 payments. You got September and October, maybe even 3 payments if you like. September, October, November to make the 3 payments. But the final payment, once again, is due November the 15th. So hopefully, once again, I've answered your questions. But if not, please tune into session number 2. There is an information session number 2 where I interview our tour operator. He is the person on the ground, his team, I should say. He's the owner of the company, but his team on the ground in Cuba is who is going to take care of us while we are there. The tour operator, he will explain, his name is Johnny Constantine. He will explain who we're going to meet, who we're going to see. He'll explain what is the environment in Cuba right now. How are people living right now in Cuba, which is a question that many folks ask. He was going to go into the currency exchange process in Cuba as well. Please note also that credit cards, debit cards are not accepted in Cuba. So that's another piece of information that we're going to go into in session number 2, information session 2. Make sure you listen to that information session, and you can access that once again by going to blacksoulrhythms.com/Havana-Jazz-Festival to get all that information. So visit the website, make sure you've read through the itinerary, and make sure you also join our mailing list. Make sure you join our mailing list and join our Facebook group so that you can stay in the know. We're going to, as I mentioned, have information session 2. We're also going to provide short travel tips for traveling to Cuba. We're also going to do, once everybody has registered and we have secured everyone's registrations, we'll have a group specifically for those that are traveling, another information session to get on a Zoom call virtually so that we can meet each other before the trip begins. So once again, I hope I've answered your questions. If not, please send me an email. Email is here on the screen. Please give me a phone call. Please call, leave a message. I'll get back to you if I don't pick up right away. And once again, visit our website for all detailed information about the itinerary. And once again, thank you for joining me tonight, today, this morning, this afternoon, whatever time it is for you. Thanks for joining. And we will be in touch. Bye for now.